Hi, this is David Frye again on the Pride Disability Network, and this is episode 3. And today I want to talk about the people that helped me to do this networking. And so I'm going to address to one person here that has helped me a lot. And she started a group over in the rural area of St. Johnsbury, Vermont. And here is Charlene Willey. And so I want to talk to you today about when we first did networking over there, and we got you a space to do networking, and it was at a church. What was it like for you when you got people to come to group? How did it touch their lives, or how did it make you feel when you inspired someone that, hey, this is who you are, you shouldn't be ashamed of who you are? Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Certainly. I thank you for having me here. One of the things that happened with the St. Johnsbury group, people would come from time to time, and some of them would have questions, some of them would want to hang out and just have a safe space without getting too personal or anything, and that was fine. And I would allow them to be themselves, and would help them understand themselves as individuals, and gay or lesbian or transgender, and inspire hope within them, because being a rural area that it was, there's a lot of in the closet, I call it in the closet living. You don't see a lot of out in public holding hands or affection or things like that, and so
especially being in a rural area,
yes.
There's a lot of discrimination. There's a lot of, St. Johnsbury is the Northeast Kingdom, and there's a lot of people that still, I think, in those areas, there's a lot of people that are against people that are GLBTQA, and a lot of stigma behind that stereotype of being GLBTQIA is, and
there is, and a lot of that is fear. People are afraid of something different, and I first came out in that community as a transgender person, and worked with therapists and psychiatrists, and they helped condition me to the conditions that I was about to face, and I did face them. And so, but we have to keep in mind that there was a lot of supportive people too. Even though I was condemned by half the town, a lot of people did support me, and so I had that network going for myself.
So what would you tell people in Vermont that wanted to start a group like this, hopefully under my umbrella, and being a facilitator? What could you tell those people that you've learned by doing this?
I would say go for it. There is a need for it, and because when you really get down to the heart of things, you would find that a lot of people in the GLBT community do isolate and don't have as much exposure to the outside community and the freedoms to be themselves as we would like to think.
And so did you have any members that were really thought what you were doing was a great thing, and
It was hard to get people to respond in that sort of way. I think they felt good about it. It's hard to get people to participate and to get them to come out, and a lot of times you find that, you know, they are comfortable doing what they're doing and staying home and either working or what have you. And so to get people to participate and to come out, that's a story in itself.
Yeah.
But I think it was very useful for people, and I believe the space where we had that, even though I live here in Burlington now, and I'm no longer a resident from St. Johnsbury, I believe that space is still available if one needed to start up again.
Oh, that's great.
I do have them connections.
Good. I really think, and I hope viewers are looking at this, that because St. Johnsbury is such a rural area, and there was some interest at a conference that I did, that there was some interest in the Newport area for folks that were disabled and they were GLBTQA, that, you know, taking one area and having your groups come together. And like, so I'm thinking like Rutland and like the smaller areas outside of Rutland. I mean, those people could have groups in Rutland. And Burlington, like the group in Burlington, we meet once a week. And I think also it's really up to the group when they want to meet. Now, your group was meeting once a month, or I can't remember.
Once a week.
Once a week.
Yeah.
And you set a time by doing that. You were doing it from, was it 11 o'clock to
11 to 12 o'clock.
11 to 12
Friday
o'clock.
mornings.
So that was an hour for your group just to do check-ins and talk about what was going on in everybody's lives. And sometimes you had a topic, right?
Yes, and we would discuss them, and sometimes people would come in with certain problems that they wanted to talk about, and we would just talk about them, and allow them to you know, have that freedom to be able to express themselves.
Yeah. Yesterday in our group, one of the hot topics that were in our group was proper language, and
that's a good one.
And talking about the improper languages that people use, and bullying words, and I think in the GLBTQIA, people with disabilities world, that there's a lot of people that put us down for who we are. And you know, I've said it once, I've said it again, that we have two whammies, and that is having a disability and being GLBTQIA, and it shouldn't be. People should accept us for who we are, and you know.
I use it to my advantage. I don't feel victimized by it. I'm very empowered by it. I go to college. I'm into my third year of college, and there's nothing really that I can't do anymore, and no place that I really can't go, because I'm just that way, and you know, I'm all for living life to the fullest and to be all that you can be. I have lived many different faces in my past life, and grew up with improper language and had to, as an adult, later on in my adulthood, learn how to unlearn how to talk, and because that's all I knew how to do was talk improperly, and so because of my childhood, and so I had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned growing up, and learn how to talk and how to respond, but I also had to be taught by a therapist how to respond and how to talk, and not to use profanities, and how to eliminate them out of my life, and that was
what you were telling me earlier when I was driving you here about you going back to college and you're taking a course. Can you tell us a little bit about that course that you're taking in college?
Right now I am in college to be a social worker and trauma therapist. And the trauma therapist is to allow people to get to the core of their being. And before that happens, there's always a lot of trauma and layers of feelings. Usually unresolved anger is the biggest result of that. And so doing trauma work, people will be allowed to get to the core of their being so they can be all that they can be, and not have that ball and chain lugging around with
But I
them.
like the way you were putting, like, when you were growing up, that you were told that you were good for nothing, and that sticks in your head. I mean,
Certainly.
And
those messages, I'm involved in a little bit of neuroscience and neuroplasticity, and the neuroplasticity is all about relearning, unlearning and relearning thought patterns that I grew up with and came into my adulthood. I grew up deaf. I've been deaf since, before I entered the 1st and 2nd grade. I was already deaf and nobody knew it, not even I knew it. And so I was a problem child right from the beginning. And at least that's how I was labeled. And so as I grew up, I become not being able to do things like normal kids, not being able to learn like normal kids. I couldn't hear like normal kids, and I couldn't respond like normal kids. And so I had all of them things going against me at a very early age. And so all of that gets recorded up here in the thought process. And so as I grow older, the consequences to some of my behaviors were they get a little bit more serious as you get older, and certainly, and so we continue to down that path that I went down with the drugs and the alcohol. I've been clean and sober for 34 years now, almost 35, and so that is one of the things that I had to do. That is one of the first things that I had to do, was to eliminate the self-destructive toxins that I was putting into myself in order to start getting to the feeling process, all the layers of anger that I had inside of me. That had to be done. And so I was able to do that.
so was it hard for you when you were transitioning into a woman? What were the steps that you took as a person with disabilities?
Well, I was working with a psychiatrist and a therapist at the time, and they conditioned me for what I was going to go through in the community. What I experienced in the community was you find out who your real friends are real quick. And when you go make a gender change like that, and it's been a slow process, but a very, very successful one, I will say. And I went through a lot of dark days. However, being that I had a network of support for myself, I was able to always have that hope and to hold my head up. One of the therapists that I worked with, she taught me, how to walk through that and hold your head up when a lot of people are condemning you. And so I was able to do that and hold myself together and not respond like I would have back in the day. And so it was very challenging, I will say that. But it was very rewarding because you not only learn a lot about other people, but you learn a lot about yourself. And so that conditioned me to further my transition and to continue to walk forward and to become the person that I was meant to be.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful story. And so you live a great life now, and you love Burlington, and
yes, Burlington. I love Burlington. I mean, I still do, and because I come from St. Johnsbury, and there's nothing really going on there, and so when I come to Burlington, everything is going on. You can be broke and you can still get entertained, and you can go here and go there and do this and do that, and you don't have to be wealthy in order to do that. And so that was one of the things I loved about Burlington. I'm a musician as well. I've been a musician since I was a child, and I play guitar and keyboards and own a lot of equipment myself, and enough to fill this room. And so I process a lot of mine, growing up. That was one of the ways that I process a lot of my unresolved feelings was through music. And so that's been very beneficial to my life, and it still is.
So was last summer your first Pride, going to your first Pride? And
yes, it was.
And how was that? I mean, you must have just loved it.
I was able to perform, and that was great. I always, when I come to Burlington, I wanted to always play at Battery Park. Somehow, somewhere, sometime, I wanted to do a guitar performance at Battery Park, and
you did it at Pride.
And I was able to do that. So.
That was great. Yes. I remember Pride and listening to your music, and you did such a great job. And when I take somebody from on the outside world that hasn't had much of this GLBTQIA, but they know that they are, and being so isolated, like you had said, and bringing them to their first Pride, and it makes them so happy. Like a young girl in a wheelchair up in Montpelier brought her to her first Pride, and she was just like so happy. And that's why I do this kind of work, and to make them feel that this makes a difference in their world.
It does. It does.
And it made a difference in your world.
It did. And because where I come from, you don't see a lot of different characters of life, really. And so when I come to the Pride, you have people of all ages, all genders, and just being free with themselves, and that was something that was very noticeable for me at my first Pride that I went to, and I was like, yeah, all right, and so yeah, it was very good. I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so Do you have anything else you'd like to say to the viewers today about this kind of work? And
certainly, I would say, you know, if you're struggling with GLBT issues, there is hope. There's a lot of help out there. I never knew that until I started reaching out for different help in different areas of my life. And the help is out there. And if you're struggling and you don't want to struggle, you can get that help. It's everywhere now, and that is one of the benefits of our society. There is plenty of help out there if you would like it, and even with mental illnesses, there is plenty of help out there. And I would say, go for it. You know, get that help. Feel free to reach out and ask somebody, you know, hey, I need some help. I'm having trouble with this. I'm having trouble with that. And that can be one of your best gifts that you give to yourself sometimes.
And you're not a quitter. 'Cause,
no.
I mean, you've been through so much about going to college and you failed at that first, but you didn't give up. I mean, you started back again, and you know, thumbs up for that, Charlene.
Yes, I mean, I've been deaf all my life, and so that was an issue as well. But I also had learning disabilities from head traumas that I've experienced my first 18 years of life, and along with 47 years worth of epilepsy and seizures, which I was able to get off all medications and to be seizure free, and so I've been around neurologists all my life too, and so that's the other reason why I have an attraction to neuroscience. But yeah, it's there's a lot going on, and I want to grab onto as much of life as that I can.
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. So I want to say thank you again for doing the show and making a difference in others people's lives, because I think it's important. And your last words again on helping people out and people that are GLBTQIA. What are your last words for them?
My last words would be, go for it, live life to the fullest and be all that you can be, and get out there and live your life.
And if you've never been to a gay pride in Vermont, you need to go.
Or any state for that
matter. Or any state in that matter. If you're a person struggling with a disabled, you know, and you're just shattered from life, you're invisible, and you want to come out and be yourself, do it. Because it's too short in this world not to be yourself. Right?
That is very correct.
So thank you again for being part of the show today. And I think we've done a great show.
I thank you for having me here.